Welcome to 30 Minute Reviews. I am Adam. In this, the second episode of our second year. So, let's see. Let's get down to business on the new topics at hand. Now, I think that Ezra Miller's latest arrest is definitely worth discussing. But I think if we're going to spend the time to talk about this, I think we have to talk about it within the confines of the continued, I'll call them baffling decisions by Warner Brothers Discovery. Here's the thing. So, of note, we got, The Flash is still happening. We're still getting a Flash movie. And Zaslav, who is the current head of Warner Brothers Discovery, appeared to get annoyed when continued to be asked about it, like we're still committing to this movie. And Batgirl is now shelved permanently, not indefinitely, because indefinitely implies that there is a reality in which that movie gets released. I don't think that there is, unless there's considerable fan backlash and all of that. But, whatever. So, we have this, that movie's not coming out. The Flash still is. And the other big thing that kind of got put aside was that they're going to be getting rid of, partially, the 45-day release window that's universally applied to new release movies. So, if you go to the movies and you see a new Warner Brothers movie, something in the ballpark of 45 days, or after 45 days, usually they release on Fridays, so after 45 days, that movie will end up on HBO Max, as has been the case up until this point, after day and date release. It's not the only company to do that. Disney does the same thing, and there are some Universal movies that do the same thing too. And I don't know if we've gotten to 45 days out from Jurassic World Dominion yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if Jurassic World Dominion, if not 45, then 60 days from release will be on Peacock. Although it could be different because they could have existing streaming contracts with them. But here's the thing. Here's my problem with this whole thing. Is that Disney is also doing 45 days in theaters, then streaming on Disney Plus after 45 days. And on the one hand, I feel like that is I don't know how much money they're leaving on the table exactly. Because if you look at other big movies that haven't done this, like Spider-Man No Way Home and what was the other one? Spider-Man No Way Home, and compared to Multiverse of Madness, when you get to that 6th week, how much exactly are you leaving on the table by putting the movie not in theaters anymore and putting it on streaming where someone can watch it at home? I don't think the answer is that much. Because I went and I looked at Endgame. I want to see how much money would not have been made by Marvel by putting out Endgame after 45 days in theaters. I think, and this is a big if, I think if they did that, it would not have broken the record for number one movie of all time. By that point, they had already broken $1.5 billion. And I think that if Endgame came out today, they would probably suspend the 45-day because there's a chance the movie could break the all-time record. The all-time box office record. If that's the case, and if that is genuinely something that could happen, then I don't see how they keep it going at 45 days. That said, Multiverse of Madness stuck to the 45 days. Love and Thunder will stick to the 45 days. Wakanda Forever will probably stick to the 45 days. So this idea that, like, we're not going to do that is like, well, there is some, like, we have a case study that we can look at and be like, oh, so this does somewhat work, you know, and they're not losing too much money. Because that's the thing, is after Multiverse of Madness, if they felt they could have wrung out some more money at the box office from it, they would have abandoned it for Lightyear. But the thing is, by the time you reach 45 days on a movie, anyone who wants to see it has seen it already. I would say, arguably, since the pandemic, one of the biggest changes that has happened is that you're getting less and less people who are going to see a movie multiple times. Now, maybe it's just that people aren't willing to see. Like, I don't think Multiverse of Madness was necessarily a movie you wanted to see multiple times in a theater. But No Way Home, people saw multiple times in a theater. And I think it's kind of a weird situation that we need longer-term analysis to be able to concretely put down instead of just like 3 or 4 case studies. Because I would say the box office is fully recovered, fully recovered to where it was pre-pandemic in terms of viewer habits for opening weekend. I would say Venom Let There Be Carnage would have been the time that happened. I think the problem when you get with what's it called? When you look at the fuck? Is someone just laying on their horn? I think that when you look at like what's going on with this, was there a movie that lost money because of that? Because, like, look at Dune. Let's look at Dune, for example, because that was a Warner Brothers movie that pulled $30 million at the box office, $35 million at the box office. And that's not a tremendous amount, but it already brought in a substantial amount overseas. And the thing is, it went day and date to HBO Max. It went to HBO Max the day it came out in theaters. I saw it in the theater the night it came out, went home, wrote my review of it, watched it on HBO Max while I did. Because I was able to do both. And let me tell you, watching on the IMAX screen, much better experience than watching it at home. That's just how it is. Them's the facts. And if we're going to look at, you know, box office numbers and all of that, Dune made more money than Blade Runner 2049, which is Denis Villeneuve's last movie before Dune. And I feel like there is, you know, like if that's happening with Day and Date, then what to say about the rest? And looking at like everything that's going on, I feel like the 45-day release window is kind of the standard for most new releases. And for good reason. Because at 45 days, anyone who wants to see the movie in theater has seen the movie in theater. Anyone who does not want to see the movie in theater but wants to see the movie can now see it at home. The exhibitors have agreed to this, and I think if I'm an exhibitor and I'm looking at this, I'm less thrilled than I would have been if this announcement had come 6 months ago. Because reality situation is there are so many movies coming out at any given point. Like, there are so many new releases and so many big tentpole franchises. It's hard to keep up as a viewer. And then on top of it, if we got to sit here and be like, oh, well, fuck, now they want to keep their piece of shit, you know, they want to keep Black Adam in theaters for 60 days now and have that be the only place people can see it. Now I got to occupy another screen with Black Adam just in case people want to go see it. And let's be honest with ourselves, if you go and you look at a theater for Thor Love and Thunder now, you're going to be able to get a seat at an empty theater and not have to share a room with anyone, because people who have wanted to see it have seen it, and people who don't want to see it will wait till it goes to Disney Plus next month. It's just one of those things where it's like, this is the new way of doing business. this is how it works. And I just don't understand this, what's it called? I just don't understand the, what's I'm looking for here? The idea that, like, oh, no, people will want to see these movies in theaters because they're spectacles. And then going back to the DC 10-year plan, where it's like, oh, we're not going to do these standalone movies anymore. If I'm Matt Reeves, first and foremost, how the fuck does Joker fit into that? Or like, oh no, we're not doing standalone movies anymore. Meanwhile, you got Joker, which is now Joker 2, which I guess makes it no longer a standalone movie, but it is in a pocket universe. Unless they're changing it, and Joker 2 is a prequel to the Batman, which I would not be thrilled about. And it's like Barry Keogh's Joker was influenced by, or he was a kid when all that happened. I don't exactly think that's a great idea. But I could see them pulling that to be like, oh, okay, and this is the new DC universe. But it appeared that the DC was getting something of a plan together. Like, there was something resembling a plan that a viewer could look at, because it's like, okay, so we, like, you know, you had the Flash. The Flash was going to rewrite the universe, get rid of whatever they didn't want, put in, Michael Keaton as Batman instead of Ben Affleck. And then as you look at it, and you look at this whole situation, wow, my voice cracked for the first time in a few years. Wow. And if you look at, like, you know, this whole don't do standalone stories, it's like the most iconic and well-known comic book stories. Some of them are standalone and not tied into the main universe. Like, when we talk about Batman, and we talk about the best Batman story that's been told so far is, Dark Knight Returns. And that's an Elseworld story. Superman Red Sun, that's an Elseworld. Like, all of these Elseworld stories that DC has made a killing doing, and DC also has never had that real continuity thing that, or, you know, a straightforward continuity that Marvel did. Like, continuity, even in the comics, was more Marvel's thing than DC. DC was constantly rebooting their universe and constantly changing things from the ground up and constantly killing off characters and bringing back new ones and rewriting when the universe was destroyed and when the universe was created and who was involved and all of that was constantly in flux in DC. Constantly in flux. And I think that if we look at it through that, like, prism, then this idea that, like, all of a sudden, so DC now has to suddenly capitulate into continuity and hope for the best. And then on top of that, it's like, okay, so if we're going to do that, are they building a universe based on The Flash and Black Adam and Shazam? It seems like a weird place to start building a universe. Or are we, like, these movies we already spent a lot of money on and have the spectacle he's looking for? And it seems like, from his comments, that he's looking more for spectacle over quality, which is two very different things. Zaslav. And I think that if we're looking at it through this way of being like, okay, so these movies are not going to count, we're going to start fresh with new ones, or are we starting with these and then moving on from there? And then on top of that, if we're doing a 10-year plan for DC, where does that 10-year plan leave off? Darkseid? I hate to say it, because Thanos does, you know, kind of come from Darkseid, but I don't think Darkseid works as a 10-year plan villain. Because it's not like Darkseid has a particularly, you know... here's the thing about Thanos, is that you can build 10 years of movies towards Thanos, because Thanos is a goal that involves MacGuffins. So you can have separate movies that all deal with the same kind of bullshit. Like, where's the Tesseract? Where is the Mind Stone? Where is, you know, where is the Ether? Where is this? Where is this? Like, all of those things can come into play over multiple movies. I mean, if he's looking for the anti-life, which was referenced in Sandman, if he's just looking for the anti-life and that's all he's looking for, then how much is there to tell with that? How far is there to go? I think the answer is I don't think there's that much to do over multiple movies to build the dark side. And I think that's a key part of this. If you're going to do a 10-year plan, you need to have 10 years of things to build. You can't just be like one and done. Okay, so here's this, and then we're going to fight Darkseid 10 years from now. Unless they go like Monitor, Anti-Monitor for the villains, which I guess is also a possibility, but we've done Crisis on Infinite Earths. We've done this. And it worked pretty well in the CW. But yeah. I think let's wrap up there for today. And Ezra Miller getting arrested again, it's like, well, how do you do a press tour with this guy? Like, at minimum, how do you sell this movie to people? And how do exhibitors just be okay with it? I want to see one of the exhibitors come out and say, we're not showing this movie feasibility. That's what I want to see. Because if that happens, then WB will start to change things. But I think one of the exhibitors, be it Regal, be it AMC, has to be like, look, we are not showing The Flash if Ezra Miller's in the lead. And I think that's the only thing that's going to change anything that's going on here. That's the only way I think it's going to change. But until our next episode, have a great rest of your week.